The grand chandeliers inside Thornfield Manor glittered like a sky full of trapped stars, pouring warm light over flowing silk dresses and gleaming marble floors in a show of riches that left Rose feeling a sharp twist of unease. She had once adored evenings like this, full of lively music, graceful dances, and light-hearted teasing behind delicate fans, but now she saw how easily that sparkling world could turn into a beautiful trap. Thomas Reed's voice sliced through the swirling waltz like a knife cutting silk. "We need to talk alone, Rose." She refused to face him or answer, instead whispering a quick excuse to Lady Peton and slipping deeper into the crowd of guests, her pulse pounding hard against her ribs. The orchestra built to a soaring peak that echoed the fear rising inside her. He followed, of course he did. Rose wove between clusters of chatting older women and hopeful young men, her deep green gown brushing soft secrets across the polished stone. She sensed Thomas right behind her, a dark storm ready to break. It had been 3 months since she ended their engagement, 3 months of unread letters, returned wilted flowers, and refused visits, 3 months of watching his fixation harden into something far more frightening than love ever was. "You cannot hide from me forever," he called out, his tone rising over the melody until heads started turning. Rose pushed through the ballroom doors into the long hallway beyond, breathing faster now. The party sounds faded behind her, replaced by the empty echo of her steps on cold stone. Thornfield Manor spread out like a maze of dim corridors and locked doors hiding private secrets. She had visited often enough to know the layout, yet panic blurred her memory. Left or right, servants' area or family quarters. The ballroom doors burst open behind her. Rose. Thomas's heavy boots thudded with purpose, the stride of a man who had never been refused anything he desired. There is nowhere left to run. She turned left, lifting her skirts and clenching her fists as she dashed forward. The hallway seemed endless, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to watch and condemn her desperate escape. A woman fleeing through a nobleman's private halls, the gossip alone could shatter what little reputation she had left. But reputation meant nothing compared to the threat of becoming a corpse, and she had glimpsed the dangerous madness blooming in Thomas's eyes lately. He saw her as a prize to claim, a lost belonging. A heavy mahogany door appeared on her right, its brass handles catching faint lamplight. Without pausing, Rose shoved against it, shoulders protesting until it swung open. She stumbled inside, spun, and slammed it shut, her fingers sliding the bolt home with a solid click. Silence swallowed the room. Rose leaned her back against the wood, chest heaving, her elegant hairstyle loosening from its pins. Outside, Thomas's steps slowed then stopped. She imagined him standing there, his once handsome face twisted by the fury of a man who believed the world owed him total obedience. "I know you are in there," he said, calm now in a way that chilled her more than shouts. "Do you really think a door will stop me? I have bought every one of your father's gambling debts, Rose. The Mayfair house, the country estate, even your mother's jewels, they are all mine now." "Which means you are mine." Her stomach dropped. She had known the debts were severe, but hearing them turned into a weapon hurt deeply. "Open the door, darling. We can discuss repayment like civilized adults, perhaps over dinner tomorrow. I already had your things moved to my townhouse." "Your father agreed so easily." Rose's hands tightened into fists. Of course her father had agreed, he always had when it came to gambling away their future or accepting Thomas's proposal for her. He had cooperated in every way except the one that truly mattered, shielding his own daughter. "I will break this door if I must," Thomas continued, and now eagerness crept into his voice. "You have given me quite the chase, my dear, but every hunt ends." His fist pounded the wood, shaking the heavy frame. Only then did Rose notice her surroundings. The chamber lay mostly dark, lit only by fading embers in a vast fireplace. The air carried the rich scent of fine brandy mixed with leather and a hint of sandalwood or cedar. Thick curtains blocked any moonlight from the windows. This was no ordinary sitting room but a private masculine study she had invaded like an intruder. And she was not alone. The awareness crept up her spine like cold mist, a silent presence in the shadows near the hearth, watching her. Her breath caught. "Please," she whispered into the darkness, to whatever figure or gentleman she had disturbed. "Please do not." Thomas's fist struck harder. "Rose, open this door at once." From the gloom came motion. A tall, broad-shouldered shape rose from a high-backed chair, outlined by the fire's red glow. Rose clapped a hand over her mouth as the silhouette stepped forward, revealing sharp cheekbones, a stern mouth, and a jagged scar running from temple to jaw like a fracture in stone. "My lady," the man spoke, his voice as cold as winter wind. "It seems we have an issue at the door." Before the story continues, my lovely family, if you are enjoying this tale of escape and unexpected alliance, please hit that like button, share it with a friend who loves sweeping romances, subscribe for more heartfelt stories, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from right now. The figure stood carved from shadow and flickering light, impossibly tall with shoulders that blocked the dying embers. The scar pulsed faintly in the low glow, a silver line telling of survived violence. Rose's voice emerged as a faint whisper. "I did not know anyone was here." Thomas's fist crashed again, making her flinch. "Rose Everly, you are testing my patience. I will not be humiliated before the entire ton." The shadowed man tilted his head, and Rose caught the gleam of pale eyes, blue or gray, she could not tell. "Thomas Reed," he said, not a question but a statement from a man who made it his business to know all that happened in his world. "Still pounding on locked doors, I see. Some habits never fade." Rose pressed harder against the mahogany, trying to shrink. She recognized that voice now, whispered about at teas and soirees with nervous glances and quiet laughter. Alexander Ravenscroft, the Duke of Ravenscroft, known as the Dark Duke. He had withdrawn from society 5 years earlier after a scandal no one dared name outright, appearing only for vital parliamentary duties before vanishing back to his northern stronghold. And she had just burst into his private sanctuary like a common fugitive. "Your Grace," she managed, sinking into a shaky curtsy. "I apologize deeply for the intrusion. I had no idea this room was occupied." He stepped closer, and Rose fought the urge to flee. The only exit led back to Thomas waiting like a wolf at a burrow. "Though I must admit it has been years since a lady has thrown herself so literally into my presence. Modern courtship grows ever more theatrical." Was he teasing? His dry tone made it impossible to know. Rose looked up, trying to read his face, but he stayed positioned so the fire lit only his unmarked side. The scar twisted across the right cheek, tugging the corner of his mouth into a perpetual sardonic expression that might have been handsome once and still carried a dangerous allure if one dared look past the mark. "I assure you this was no planned advance," she began, but another crash against the door interrupted. The wood groaned, and Thomas cursed beyond it. "He seems quite determined," the Duke noted, moving unhurriedly to a sideboard where crystal decanters caught the firelight like liquid gold. He poured brandy with the calm grace of someone never rushed. "Tell me, Miss Everly, it is Miss, not Mrs. Reed, correct?" "It is Miss," she replied sharper than intended, "and it will stay that way." "Ah." He sipped, studying her over the glass rim. "Hence the drama. A lover's quarrel, then." "Former fiancé," she corrected. "And it was no quarrel. I ended it months ago. He refuses to accept my choice." As shown by his insistent knocking, the Duke leaned against the desk's edge, utterly at ease amid the chaos. His long legs in black evening attire seemed to absorb the light, every line of him speaking of restrained power, a predator at rest. "And now you find yourself trapped in a stranger's study, swapping one scandal for another." Rose's hands fisted in her skirts. "I did not seek your opinion on my troubles, Your Grace. Only temporary shelter behind your door. My door has served you well enough." A flicker that might have been amusement crossed his face. "I wonder what you intend when Mr. Reed tires of knocking and starts kicking in earnest. Lord Peton's doors are sturdy but not unbreakable." As if on cue, a huge crash rattled the frame. Thomas had found something to use as a ram. "Rose." His voice turned manic. "I hear you in there, and whoever you are with, I will ruin you both." The Duke raised an eyebrow. "Charming man. What did you ever see in him?" "My father's debts." The words burned, but her reputation was already in ruins. "Thomas offered to clear them in exchange for my hand. I foolishly thought it fair. Now he owns them anyway, buying them piece by piece like shares in a failing company." Her voice cracked. "He says I belong to him, that my father cooperated gladly." The Duke stayed silent a long moment, pale eyes fixed on her with piercing intensity. Then he set his glass down softly. "Your father is a fool," he said conversationally. "But most men are fools with cards and dice, convincing themselves the next hand will turn their luck while never considering who pays the price." Another crash, the bolt began loosening. Rose straightened, forcing resolve into her tone despite terror clawing her throat. "I should leave. This is not your concern, your grace, and I have imposed enough." "Leave?" He tilted his head, firelight catching the full scar, a vicious mark from temple through eyebrow to jaw that should have been ugly yet lent him a sharp, dangerous beauty like a notched blade. "And go where? Through the door being demolished, or the window? We are on the second floor, but a fall might only break a leg or two." "I will not be mocked." "I am not mocking you." He crossed the space in 3 strides, looming over her. Up close he was even more commanding, over 6 feet of lean muscle and contained threat, wrapped in sandalwood and smoke. "I am deciding whether you are brave or simply desperate." "What difference does it make?" "All the difference." His hand rose, she flinched until she realized he reached past her to test the trembling door. Bravery can be nurtured. Desperation, however, makes people useful. Rose's heart hammered. Useful to whom? He smiled, a sharp, calculated thing. "To me." He told her then how attached she was to her reputation. She admitted it was already shattered the moment she fled the ballroom with Thomas chasing. Her fate was sealed. By tomorrow every drawing room would buzz with whispers about Rose Everleigh's desperate flight, and betting books would wager on elopement or madness. Tears stung her eyes, but she held them back. "Then what does anything I do now matter? I am already lost." He rolled the word on his tongue like fine wine. "Lost is so final. I prefer to see it as unmoored, free from society's chains." His hand dropped. "Tell me, what would you do if you had no reputation left to guard? If whispers and scandal could not touch you?" "I would be free of Thomas Reed," she said fiercely. "Never see him again, never hear his voice or feel his gaze. I would vanish somewhere he could not reach and build a life that was truly mine." Ambitious, the Duke stepped back, granting her heir. "And impossible while he holds your father's debts. He could have you arrested for theft if you fled, drag you through courts, parade your family's shame." She knew all that, she had spent months calculating every hopeless option. The door splintered further, Thomas's hand thrust through, groping for the bolt. The Duke strode over, threw the bolt, and yanked the door wide before Rose could protest. Thomas stumbled in, cravat askew, face flushed with rage and effort. Behind him crowded faces, Lord Petton scandalized, Lady Petton gleaming with cruel delight, guests straining for a view. Thomas's eyes locked on Rose with possessive fire. "There you are, you little—" He halted at the Duke's presence. "Ravenscroft. I did not know you were in London." Evidently, the Duke's voice was ice. Though the locked door might have hinted at a desire for privacy. "I do not care about your privacy. That woman is mine." "Yours?" The Duke's brow arched. "How fascinating. Miss Everleigh, are you this gentleman's property?" "No," Rose found her voice. The Duke regarded Thomas like a dull dog. "On what exactly do you base this claim of ownership, Reed? Are we in medieval times? Should I search for your mark upon her?" Thomas's face darkened. Her father's debts. Ah, debts. The Duke smiled that terrible smile. I know the idea well, yet I have never heard them used to justify kidnapping. Thomas sputtered. She is my fiancée, former, Rose cut in. The Duke turned to her, eyes offering a silent choice. How odd, because I was under the impression Miss Everleigh is currently engaged to me. The hallway erupted in gasps. Thomas cycled through shock, fury, and darker rage. Engaged? To you. Is there an echo here? The Duke adjusted his cuff casually. Yes, read. Engaged to me. I know the notion may be hard for you since you seem to believe a woman's hand can be bought with her father's debts, but you are lying. Thomas advanced, fists clenched. Rose's mind raced. The Duke had offered a hypothetical moments ago, now he declared it fact before half of London's elite. She should deny it, laugh it off, apologize. Yet his pale eyes held patience, waiting for her to step through the door he had opened. It is not madness, she heard herself say. His Grace and I have an understanding. The Duke's mouth quirked faintly. Thomas lunged, the Duke intercepted with effortless speed, catching him by the throat not violently, but with such calm certainty that Thomas froze. I advise you to reconsider, the Duke murmured for Thomas alone yet heard by all. I am not a patient man, and I have little tolerance for those who mistake courtesy for weakness. He released Thomas with a light push that sent him stumbling. Lord Peton tried to intervene, but the Duke turned the narrative masterfully, painting Rose's flight as refuge from obsession rather than disgrace. Lady Peton pressed with insinuations about their sudden connection, the Duke countered with a flawless lie about correspondence between their late mothers plausible, unverifiable, and enough to satisfy propriety. Rose expanded it smoothly, buying time with talk of solicitors and settlements. The crowd shifted, disapproval turning toward Thomas. The Duke offered Rose his arm, she took it, and they left together, his greatcoat draped over her shoulders against the night chill. In the carriage rolling through rain-slick streets, he explained the bargain plainly. He needed a wife to restore his standing with the crown and society, she needed protection from Thomas and her father's debts. Separate chambers, no demands on her person, only the appearance of harmony. She asked about his 5-year exile, he kept that secret, offering mutual privacy. She accepted with conditions: no prying, no intimidation, and future independence when the arrangement ended. They reached his Mayfair townhouse, where she met the efficient staff and settled into the blue chamber, alone at last yet feeling the first spark of hope in months. The journey north to Ravenscroft Manor took 5 days of rugged roads and shared silences. They married swiftly by special license in his private chapel. The announcement appeared in the papers, Thomas's furious letters were burned unread. At the remote fortress of dark stone and crenellated towers, Rose discovered its austere beauty and the surprising warmth inside. She explored the battlements, glimpsed Alexander's hidden kindness in the workshop where he employed injured tenants, giving them purpose and profit. Mises. Blackwood revealed his quiet generosity during village fevers and losses. One night Rose woke to his screams from nightmares of fire, betrayal, and the death of his pregnant former fiancée Catherine, killed indirectly by his rage-fueled confrontation that sent her fleeing into fatal accident. He confessed the scar, the guilt, the reason society branded him the Dark Duke. Rose shared her own scars, Thomas's escalating abuse, bruises, threats, and the way he had cornered her until she fled. They comforted each other, boundaries softening into honest connection. 3 weeks of fragile peace followed: shared meals, library hours, tentative garden plans inspired by his mother's journals, until a messenger brought news of Thomas's new scheme. He had bought up vast debts across London's banks, shipping firms, and parliamentary notes, calling them due to trigger economic collapse unless Alexander surrendered Rose. The crisis had already begun with one bank failing. They raced back to London, deciding to turn Thomas's obsession against him. Rose insisted on being bait in a controlled trap at the townhouse. Alexander confessed his love, Rose realized hers had grown genuine too. They consummated their marriage that night, no longer strangers but true partners. The next day Thomas arrived with a bribed magistrate and forged betrothal papers claiming prior rights. The trap sprang, hidden witnesses recorded his open confession of extortion, fraud, and threats. Alexander subdued him physically when he lunged, authorities arrested him on the spot. Assets were seized, accomplices turned. Alone afterward, Alexander knelt and proposed truly not for convenience but from the heart, flaws and all. Rose accepted freely, tears flowing, affirming her love for the scarred, haunted man who had become her monster, her protector, her home. They returned north together, ready to plant the garden in the harsh soil, build a real life, and perhaps welcome heirs one day, two broken souls who had chosen each other and found the strength to flourish where only survival had existed before. My lovely family, if you stayed until the very end of Rose and Alexander's journey from terror to true love, thank you. All I ask is that you subscribe so you never miss the next sweeping tale, like this video to tell YouTube you want more stories like this, and share it right now. Tag a friend who adores romance, send it to your book club, or drop it in your group chat because someone needs this happy ending today. These stories thrive because of your support. Tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment? The dramatic study door when the Dark Duke claimed her publicly, the midnight confessions of their deepest wounds, the passionate night they chose each other for real, or the courtroom trap that finally ended Thomas's reign of fear. Are you Team Alexander or Team Rose? Let me know. I read every comment. And if the suggestion appears at the end, click it for another unforgettable Victorian romance from our channel. Until next time, stay romantic.